The battlefield was quiet, but it was not the silence of peace. It was a silence after destruction. The ground was broken, filled with deep scars of explosions. Black smoke rose slowly into the sky, mixing with the red glow of a dying sunset. The air smelled of fire, dust, and blood. Captain Daniel Ward, a human soldier, walked carefully across the ruins. His armor was scratched and burned. His helmet hung loosely at his side, showing a tired face with lines of war carved deep. His eyes, however, were still sharp, always watching, always searching. Daniel had fought in many battles, but today felt different. He did not know why, but something told him this mission was not like the others. He moved through what looked like the remains of an alien fortress. The walls were tall, made of strange stone that still glowed faintly with alien symbols. They pulsed weakly, like the last breath of a dying star. Broken pieces of technology sparked around him, their light flickering on and off. Daniel kept his rifle ready, his finger close to the trigger. He knew the enemy well. The aliens could attack at any time, and silence often meant they were waiting. His boots crunched on broken stone, each step echoing in the hollow ruins. He had learned never to trust quiet places. Then he froze. His heart skipped a beat. He heard something. It was not the sound of engines, not the shout of soldiers, not the roar of alien weapons. It was softer, fragile, like glass breaking. Daniel held his breath and listened harder. It was a cry, a child's cry. For a moment, he thought he was imagining it. But no, the sound came again, weak, broken, and filled with fear. Daniel's instinct screamed for him to be careful. This could be a trap. The enemy sometimes used tricks, luring humans in. But there was something in that sound, something no machine or weapon could fake. It was real. He followed the sound deeper into the ruins, stepping carefully, scanning every shadow. The cries grew louder, echoing through the stone halls. Finally, Daniel reached a small chamber half buried in rubble. The roof had collapsed, leaving only a narrow gap where dim light shone through. His eyes adjusted, and then he saw her. A young alien girl sat in the corner. She could not have been older than 10. Her skin was pale, glowing faintly like moonlight. Elegant markings, almost like tattoos, ran along her arms and face, glowing softly as if alive. Her long dark hair was tangled and dusty, her small body shaking with sobs. Daniel lowered his rifle slowly. His soldier's heart, hardened by years of war, softened at the sight. This was not an enemy fighter. This was a child, scared, lost, and alone. He crouched down, speaking gently. "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you." The girl lifted her head. Her eyes, large and shining with tears, locked on him. She whispered something in her own alien tongue. Daniel could not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Fear. He slowly removed one glove, showing his bare hand. His palm was scarred, rough, but human. He extended it carefully toward her. "Come on. You're safe now." For a moment, she did not move. Then, with trembling hands, she reached out. Her small glowing fingers touched his hand. The connection was simple, but powerful. Daniel felt something stir deep inside him, something he had not felt in years. Hope. But before he could say another word, the ground rumbled beneath his feet. Dust rained from the ceiling. Daniel pulled the girl close and turned, ready to shield her. A shadow moved in the chamber. From the darkness, a figure stepped forward. She was tall, elegant, and glowing with the same markings as a child. Her presence filled the room with power, yet also with sorrow. Her silver-blue hair fell around her shoulders, her glowing eyes fixed on the child. She looked both fierce and broken. Daniel's breath caught. He understood instantly. This was no ordinary alien. This was a queen. The queen's glowing eyes widened when she saw the girl. Her lips trembled, and she stumbled forward. For one heartbeat, she seemed less like a ruler and more like a mother who had lost everything. The girl's cry changed. It was no longer fear. It was joy. She pulled away from Daniel and ran to the queen, her arms reaching forward. The queen dropped to her knees and caught her daughter, holding her tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she pressed her forehead to the girl's, whispering words of love in her own language. The child buried her face in her mother's arms, sobbing with relief. Daniel turned his eyes away, giving them privacy. His throat tightened. This reunion was not his, but it was powerful, so pure that it cut through all the hatred of war. Still, he noticed something. The Queen's eyes kept flicking back to him, not with rage, not with pure distrust, but with suspicion. Why was a human soldier protecting her daughter? Before Daniel could speak, the ground shook again. This time it was louder, heavier. Shadows moved in the smoke beyond the chamber. The sound of armored footsteps approached. The enemy was returning. The Queen rose, clutching her daughter tightly. Daniel lifted his rifle, instincts taking over. The moment of peace was ending. The battlefield silence was about to break once more. The ground trembled again, louder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling, and small stones rolled across the broken floor. Captain Daniel Ward tightened his grip on his rifle. His soldier's instinct screamed. Danger was coming fast. The alien Queen held her daughter tightly against her chest. Her glowing eyes never left the shadowed hallway ahead. She whispered softly in her own language, trying to calm the child, though her own body shook with fear and anger. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself between them and the entrance. His armor was heavy and scratched, but his stance was firm. He had faced enemies before, but now he felt something different. He was not just fighting for survival. He was protecting something greater. From the smoke ahead, the sound grew clearer. Metal footsteps, heavy breathing, the grinding of weapons being armed. The enemy soldiers were returning. The Queen's voice rose, strong and sharp. "Run!" Daniel turned his head slightly. He did not understand her language, but the meaning was clear from her tone. She wanted him to take her daughter and flee. "No," Daniel said firmly. "We fight together." For a brief moment, the Queen's eyes met his. There was confusion there, but also something new, respect. The first enemy soldier peered through the smoke. He was massive, taller than Daniel, his body wrapped in dark armor glowing with red symbols. His weapon hummed with deadly energy. Behind him, more shadows followed. Daniel raised his rifle and fired. The blast of energy lit up the chamber. The first soldier staggered back, sparks flying off his armor. He roared in anger, stumbling but not falling. The Queen stepped forward then. She raised one hand, and the markings on her skin blazed with light. A wave of energy burst from her palm, slamming into the enemy and throwing him against the wall. The stone cracked from the force. Daniel blinked in shock. He had heard of alien powers, but to see it with his own eyes was different. She was not just a queen. She was a weapon of light. "Impressive," he muttered under his breath, before turning his rifle on the next attacker. The chamber erupted into chaos. Blasts of human gunfire mixed with alien energy strikes. The ground shook, the walls cracked, and the air filled with smoke and sparks. Daniel fought with trained precision, his shot sharp and deadly. The Queen fought like a storm, her glowing power tearing through the enemy ranks. But there were too many of them. For every soldier that fell, 2 more came through the smoke. The little girl clung to her mother's robes, her eyes wide with terror. Daniel noticed her trembling and felt a surge of determination. He would not let her be taken. He would not let this reunion end in tragedy. "Back!" Daniel shouted, pointing to a narrow passage at the far end of the chamber. He hoped the Queen would understand. The Queen looked, then nodded quickly. She grabbed her daughter and moved toward the passage while Daniel covered them. His rifle barked again and again, cutting down the soldiers that tried to block their path. One enemy lunged with a blade, but Daniel swung his rifle like a club, smashing the soldier to the ground. The Queen raised her hand once more, sending a shockwave of light that blasted open the blocked passage. Dust and stone rained down, but the way was clear. "Go!" Daniel shouted. The Queen hesitated for just a moment, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Then she pulled her daughter through the gap, disappearing into the narrow passage. Daniel fired one last shot, then turned and ran after them. The tunnel was dark and tight, the walls rough with broken stone. The sound of footsteps echoed behind them, enemy soldiers giving chase. Daniel's lungs burned as he ran, his armor heavy, but he pushed himself harder. At last, the passage opened into a wider cavern. The Queen stood at the center, holding her daughter close. She looked at Daniel, her expression torn between suspicion and trust. Daniel bent over, catching his breath. He looked at the Queen and then at the girl. "We're not safe yet," he said softly. The queen did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. She nodded slowly. The little girl, still clinging to her mother, turned her glowing eyes toward Daniel. She spoke one word in a trembling voice. Daniel did not know the meaning, but it sounded like hope. The sound of enemy soldiers grew louder behind them. The chase was not over. Daniel checked his rifle. The queen raised her glowing hands. The child held on tightly. The battle was only beginning. The cavern was dark and wide, its ceiling lost in shadows. Strange crystals grew from the walls, glowing faintly with blue light. The light reflected on the queen's skin and the markings of her daughter, making them shine like stars. Captain Daniel Ward glanced around quickly, checking for danger. His rifle was warm in his hands, his armor heavy with sweat and dust. The queen held her daughter close, her glowing eyes never leaving the tunnel behind them. The sound of enemy footsteps still echoed, but it was faint now. For the moment, they were safe. Daniel lowered his rifle slightly and looked at the queen. She stood tall, her silver blue hair falling over her shoulders, her face both beautiful and unreadable. She seemed strong, but he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. The child clung to her mother tightly, whispering in a language Daniel did not know. He wanted to say something, to tell them they were safe for now. But the truth was, they were not. The enemy would not stop hunting them. He knew it, and the queen knew it too. Daniel pointed deeper into the cavern. "We need to keep moving," he said. He did not expect her to understand, but his hand gestures were clear. The queen tilted her head, studying him. Then, with a soft nod, she agreed. They began to walk through the cavern. The floor was uneven, and the child stumbled often. Daniel noticed this and slowed his pace, trying to make it easier for her. The girl looked up at him once, her glowing eyes wide, and for the first time, she gave a small, shy smile. Daniel felt something stir in his chest. He was a soldier, trained to fight, to kill, to follow orders. But this was different. Protecting a child, protecting a family, it felt more important than any mission he had ever known. As they moved deeper, the crystals grew brighter, lighting the path. Strange alien carvings covered the walls, telling stories Daniel could not understand. The queen touched one of the carvings lightly with her hand. Her eyes softened, and for a moment she looked almost human. Daniel realized then that she was not just a queen in title. She was something more, a leader, a protector, and perhaps the last hope of her people. Finally, they reached a large chamber where the crystals glowed like fire. The queen stopped and placed her daughter on the ground gently. The child leaned against her mother, tired but safe. Daniel leaned against the wall, catching his breath. His muscles ached, and his mind was heavy, but he could not rest long. "They'll come," he muttered to himself. "They always come." The queen turned to him. For the first time, she spoke words slowly, carefully, as if trying to bridge the distance between their languages. "Human? Why?" Daniel looked at her, confused. "Why what?" She pointed at her daughter, then at him. Her eyes narrowed. "Why help?" Daniel understood. She wanted to know why a human soldier would risk his life to save an alien child. He thought for a moment. Then he lowered his rifle, placing it carefully on the ground. He tapped his chest with his hand. "Because it's right." The queen stared at him, her face unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. It was not full trust, but it was a beginning. The silence was broken by a sudden sound. The ground shook lightly, and a low hum filled the air. Daniel tensed, grabbing his rifle again. The queen pulled her daughter close. From the shadows at the far end of the chamber, something moved. At first, Daniel thought it was another soldier. But as it stepped into the light, he realized it was different. It was tall, almost twice his height, its body sleek and silver, glowing with strange energy. Its eyes burned like fire, and its movements were too smooth, too perfect. This was no soldier. It was a hunter. The queen gasped softly, her body shaking. Daniel saw fear in her eyes, real fear. This was not just another enemy soldier. This was something worse. Something designed to kill without mercy. The hunter's voice echoed through the chamber, deep and cold. Daniel could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. It had found them. Daniel raised his rifle. The queen raised her glowing hands. The little girl clung to her mother, her eyes wide with terror. For a heartbeat, the chamber was silent. Then the hunter stepped forward, the crystals around him flickering with its power. Daniel swallowed hard, his finger on the trigger. He had fought many enemies, but this one felt different. This one felt unstoppable. The battle for survival was about to begin again. The hunter stepped forward, its tall frame glowing with strange silver light. Its body looked like armor, but it was not metal. It seemed alive, shifting and smooth, as if the creature itself was built from energy. Its burning eyes locked on the queen and her daughter. Captain Daniel Ward raised his rifle and aimed at the glowing chest. His hands were steady, but his heartbeat thundered in his ears. He had fought enemies before, soldiers, machines, even alien beasts, but this was different. This creature was built to kill. The queen pulled her daughter behind her, her glowing markings brightening with power. She whispered softly in her child's ear, calming her even as fear showed in her own face. The hunter tilted its head, as if studying them. Then it raised one long arm, and energy began to form at its fingertips. "Move!" Daniel shouted. The queen reacted instantly, sending a wave of light across the floor. The energy blast from the hunter collided with her shield, shaking the chamber. Crystals shattered, their pieces raining down like glass. The air filled with sparks and dust. Daniel rolled to the side and opened fire. His rifle spat glowing rounds, slamming into the hunter's chest. The shot sparked and hissed, but the creature hardly slowed. It turned toward him, its burning eyes fixed on the human soldier. "Damn," Daniel muttered. The hunter charged. Daniel dove behind a crystal pillar as a creature's arm smashed through it, breaking the stone like it was paper. He fired again, this time aiming for the joints. Sparks flew, and the hunter staggered slightly, but it did not fall. The queen raised both hands, her markings glowing like fire. She unleashed a powerful wave of energy that struck the hunter, forcing it back. The chamber shook from the force. For a moment, it seemed like she might overwhelm it. But the hunter roared, its body glowing brighter. It absorbed the energy and pushed forward, its movements even faster now. Daniel's mind raced. He could see the queen was powerful, but the hunter was stronger, smarter. If they did not work together, they would all die here. "Hey!" Daniel shouted to her, slamming a new charge into his rifle. He pointed at the hunter, then at himself, then at her. Together! The queen's glowing eyes flicked toward him. She understood. She gave a sharp nod. The hunter leapt forward, swinging its arm like a blade. Daniel rolled low, firing at its legs, while the queen attacked from above with a storm of glowing energy. The creature staggered under the combined assault, forced to defend itself from two sides at once. The little girl watched from the corner, her small hands pressed to her chest. She whispered words in her alien tongue, her voice trembling with fear and hope. Daniel fired a final shot at the hunter's head. The blast cracked its glowing armor, leaving a dark scar across its face. The queen seized a moment, unleashing a strike so bright it blinded the chamber. The energy slammed into the hunter, throwing it across the cavern. It hit the far wall hard, the ground shaking from the impact. For a moment, everything was silent. Daniel stood slowly, rifle still raised. His chest heaved, sweat dripping down his face. The queen lowered her glowing hands, her body trembling from the effort. The child ran to her mother, hugging her tightly. Daniel kept his eyes on the hunter. "Is it dead?" he muttered. The answer came too quickly. The hunter's body twitched. Slowly, it rose to its feet. Its glowing eyes burned even brighter now, and its cracked face twisted into something almost like a smile. Daniel cursed under his breath. Of course not. The hunter stepped forward, its movement slower but more dangerous, more focused. It had learned from their attacks. It was adapting. The queen's face grew pale. Her powers had weakened from the last strike, and she clutched her daughter tightly. Daniel knew she could not unleash another blast like that so soon. That left only him. He tightened his grip on his rifle, his heart heavy. "All right," he whispered to himself. "One more round." The hunter lunged again, faster than before. Daniel fired, aiming for its wounded face. The blast struck true, forcing the creature back. But it was not enough. The queen shouted something, her voice desperate. Daniel didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Warning. The hunter's arm shifted into a long, glowing blade. It raised a weapon high, aiming not for Daniel this time, but for the queen and her daughter. Daniel's blood turned cold. He knew he had only one chance. He sprinted forward, throwing himself between the hunter and the queen. He raised his rifle and fired point-blank at its face, even as the blade came down toward him. The blast lit up the cavern like a star exploding. Then, silence. Dust filled the air. The child screamed. The queen cried out. When the smoke cleared, the hunter still stood, its face shattered, its eyes flickering. But Daniel was on the ground, his armor torn open, his body bleeding. The queen's glowing eyes widened, her cry echoing through the chamber. The fight was not over. But now, the human soldier lay broken at her feet. The storm outside the ruins howled like a beast, rattling the old stone walls. Inside, the human soldier Marcus stood between two powerful figures, the alien Queen Seraphina and her long-lost daughter Lyra. The tension was thick, like the air before lightning. Lyra's chest rose and fell fast, her eyes wide, shimmering with both fear and confusion. Her long silver hair clung to her face, damp from the rain. "You're saying she's my mother?" Lyra whispered, her voice cracking. The queen's lips trembled. She reached out with shaky hands, as if afraid the young woman would vanish if she touched her. "Yes, my child. I lost you in the firestorm. They told me you were dead, but here you stand, alive." Marcus could see the queen's tough, regal armor shaking under the weight of her emotions. The alien warrior who had commanded armies now looked like a mother begging for her child's forgiveness. But Lyra stepped back, shaking her head. "No, my mother died. I was raised in the camps, in pain, in hunger. My mother was not there. My mother did not protect me." Her words were sharp as broken glass, cutting deep into the queen's heart. The silence that followed was suffocating. Rainwater dripped from the cracked ceiling. Marcus clenched his fists. He knew this reunion would not be easy, but seeing Lyra's pain was harder than he imagined. The queen fell to her knees. The echo of her armor hitting the stone floor was heavy with sorrow. She bowed her head, her long crown-like headpiece almost touching the ground. "Then punish me. Hate me if you must. But know this, I never stopped searching for you. I never stopped loving you." Her voice broke into sobs. Marcus had never seen anything like it. A queen of an empire, a figure feared across galaxies, was kneeling like a broken mother in front of her child. Lyra's hands trembled. Tears slid down her face, but her anger burned hot. "Love? Where was your love when I was starving? When soldiers whipped us? When they made me fight to survive?" Her words echoed through the chamber. The queen's eyes flooded with tears. "I was trapped, betrayed. They lied to me. They told me you were gone, burned with the others. I carried your name in my heart for years. Every victory, every breath, was for the hope that somehow I might find you again." Marcus stepped forward, his voice firm but gentle. "Lyra, I saw her risk her life for you. She fought through soldiers, storms, and death itself. No one lies like that. Look into her eyes. Tell me if she's lying." Lyra turned, her piercing silver gaze locking with her mother's. For a long moment, she searched, as if trying to break through walls of sorrow and regret. And then, in her mother's eyes, she saw it, the same spark she saw in her own reflection. But just as Lyra's defenses began to crumble, a low growl echoed through the ruins. Marcus stiffened, his hand going to his rifle. The queen looked up sharply. From the shadows, dark figures stepped forward, alien hunters, their bodies tall and armored, their eyes glowing like coals. They carried energy spears, and their leader sneered. "How touching. A reunion. Too bad it ends here." Lyra froze, her heart racing. She knew these hunters. They were the same who had haunted her childhood, the same who made her life a prison. Marcus raised his weapon. "Stay behind me." The queen's sorrow vanished, replaced by fury. She stood tall, her crown glinting in the dim light. "You dare interrupt this moment? You will not take her from me again." Her voice shook the chamber with raw power. The hunters laughed. "We don't care for your reunion. We only want blood. Hers, yours, and the humans." Lyra's breath hitched. For the first time, she looked at Marcus, then at her mother, and then at the approaching hunters. A choice burned inside her chest. She could run, as she always had. Oh, she could stand. Her legs trembled, but she stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but strong. I will not run anymore. The Queen's eyes widened in shock. Marcus gave a sharp nod of approval. Lyra reached out, pulling a broken spear from the floor. Her grip was shaky, but her stance was steady. She looked at her mother. If I truly am your daughter, then I will fight by your side. The Queen's tears shimmered again, but this time they were not from sorrow. They were from pride. The hunters charged, their footsteps pounding like thunder. The chamber filled with the sound of weapons powering up. Marcus raised his rifle. The Queen summoned her energy shield. Lyra lifted her spear. For the first time in her life, she did not feel alone. The storm outside raged, but inside the ruins, a storm of a different kind was about to begin. The hunters charged like shadows given life, their glowing eyes burning with cruelty. Their footsteps pounded against the cracked stone floor, spears buzzing with deadly energy. The chamber shook with the echo of their war cries. Marcus braced himself, his rifle humming as it charged. "Stay close," he shouted. The Queen, Seraphina, stood tall, her golden armor shining faintly under the storm light that leaked through the cracks in the ruins. She raised her shield, a shimmering wall of energy forming in front of her. Sparks flew as the first hunter's spear struck it with violent force. Lyra gripped her broken spear tight. Her knuckles turned white, her hands trembling, but her eyes no longer carried only fear. They burned with something new. Determination. The first wave of hunters slammed against the Queen's shield. The sound was deafening, like lightning crashing in an endless storm. Marcus fired, his rifle's blast cutting through the air, striking two hunters and sending them crashing to the floor. But more came, their armored bodies pressing forward like a tidal wave. "Mother!" Lyra shouted. "We can't hold them." The Queen gritted her teeth, sweat rolling down her temple. "We do not run. We stand." A hunter leaped over the shield, roaring, its spear raised high. Marcus spun, firing, but the spear still came down, inches from Lyra. Something inside Lyra snapped. Her scream tore through the chamber, echoing like 1,000 voices in one. And then it happened. A burst of light exploded from her body, raw and blinding. The hunter was thrown back like a rag doll, slamming into the wall with a sickening crack. The other hunters staggered, covering their faces as a sudden blast of power scorched the air. Marcus blinked, shielding his eyes. What the hell was that? The Queen's mouth fell open, her eyes wide with awe. "It's her gift." Lyra stood frozen, her body glowing faintly, silver energy dancing across her skin like fireflies. Her eyes shimmered with the same silver light, fierce and untamed. She dropped the broken spear, her hands crackling with raw power she never knew existed. I don't understand," Lyra whispered, staring at her glowing hands. "What is this?" The Queen's voice shook. "It is a bloodline of queens. The gift of my people, the gift you were born to carry. They told me it was lost with you, but it burns inside you, stronger than I ever imagined." The hunters snarled, shaking off their fear. "The child carries the Queen's power," their leader growled. "All the more reason to kill her now." They lunged forward again, but this time Lyra didn't step back. She stepped forward. Her hands lifted, and the silver energy burst outward like a storm. Blades of light cut through the air, striking the hunters with explosive force. One by one they fell, their armored bodies crashing into the walls, their weapons shattering under the power of her will. Marcus stared, stunned. She's stronger than both of us." The Queen's lips curved into the smallest, proudest smile. "She is my daughter." But the fight was far from over. The leader of the hunters rose again, his armor cracked but his fury unbroken. He growled, raising his massive spear. "Power or not, you will all die here." He hurled the spear with inhuman force, the weapon glowing as it cut through the air. Marcus's eyes widened. He knew even his rifle couldn't stop it. At the last second, Lyra lifted her hand. The spear froze inches from her chest, trapped in the silver energy swirling around her. With a scream, She flung it back, sending the weapon hurtling through the air. It struck the leader in his chest, pinning him to the wall. His roar of rage turned into silence. The chamber fell quiet, except for the storm outside. The last of the hunters lay broken on the floor. Lyra dropped to her knees, her body shaking from the surge of energy. I don't know how I did that. The queen knelt beside her, placing trembling hands on her daughter's shoulders. Because it was always inside you, hidden, waiting. You are not only my child, you are the heir to my throne. Marcus crouched down, his eyes soft. And now, everyone who wanted to break you will fear you instead. Tears rolled down Lyra's cheeks, mixing with the glow that still lingered on her skin. For the first time, she did not feel like a lost child. She felt like someone born for more. But in the shadows, as the storm thundered outside, Marcus noticed movement. Small devices blinking red. Beacons. His heart sank. They weren't here just to kill us. They marked our location. The queen's face hardened. Then the real war is coming. Lyra lifted her head, her silver eyes burning. Then let them come. I won't run again. The storm raged louder, as if answering her challenge. The storm outside had grown into a fury, lightning splitting the sky, thunder shaking the ruins. Inside, Marcus, Seraphina, and Lyra stood in silence, their breaths heavy from the battle. The hunters lay scattered across the stone floor, defeated, but the glowing red beacons pulsed brighter and brighter. Marcus's jaw tightened. They've called the army. This place will be swarming within minutes. The queen's expression was grim. Then we faced them together. Lyra rose slowly, her body still weak from the burst of power she had unleashed. But her silver eyes glowed with steady determination. I won't hide anymore. I won't let them take me again. A low rumble grew in the distance. The ground trembled. Through the cracks of the broken roof, they saw the dark silhouettes of warships descending, blotting out the storm clouds. The alien army had arrived. The chamber doors exploded inward, and rows of armored soldiers marched in, their weapons glowing like burning suns. At their head stood a tall commander, his armor black as night, his voice cold and cruel. Queen Seraphina, rebel, traitor, we will end your line here. The girl dies, the human dies, and your throne fall forever. Marcus raised his rifle. You will have to walk over my body first. The queen stepped forward, her energy shield sparking to life. You will not touch my daughter. Lyra swallowed hard, her hands trembling, but when she looked at her mother and Marcus standing strong beside her, her fear melted away. She clenched her fists, silver energy sparking around her fingers. This ends tonight. The battle erupted like a storm inside the ruins. The alien army charged, filling the chamber with blinding flashes of weapons fire. Marcus dove, blasting enemies with deadly accuracy, his rifle's pulse echoing like thunder. The queen held the front, her shield absorbing blow after blow, her strikes sharp and merciless. Lyra closed her eyes, searching inside for the power she had felt before. At first, it was quiet, like a whisper, but then, as her fear burned away, the whisper became a roar. Her eyes flew open, glowing brighter than before. Silver energy erupted from her hands, sweeping across the chamber like a tidal wave. Soldiers were lifted into the air, their weapons ripped from their hands. The ground cracked beneath her feet. The commander roared, fighting against a storm of power. He struck at the queen, his blade slashing across her shield. Sparks burst, the impact shaking her back. She staggered but held her ground. Marcus shouted, firing at the commander, but the blast bounced off his black armor. The commander sneered. Your daughter cannot control that power. It will consume her. But Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. No, it will set me free. She raised both hands, and the silver storm wrapped around the commander, pulling at his armor, tearing it apart piece by piece. He struggled, roaring, but her power only grew stronger. With one final scream, Lyra sent him crashing into the far wall. The black armor shattered, his body collapsing in silence. The remaining soldiers hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. The queen's voice thundered through the ruins. You see her strength. You see the power of my bloodline. This is your heir, your true queen. The soldiers froze, their weapons lowering. Some stepped back, bowing their heads in uncertainty. The warships outside hovered, silent, as if waiting for orders that would never come. Marcus lowered his rifle, his chest heaving. "It's over." Lyra stood in the center of the chamber, her silver glow fading. Her body trembled, but she was still standing. For the first time, she felt like more than a survivor. She felt like she belonged. The queen stepped forward, tears filling her eyes. She cupped her daughter's face in her hands. "I failed you once. I will never fail you again." Lyra's own tears fell as she whispered, "I forgive you." The queen pulled her into her arms, holding her as if she would never let go again. The chamber, once filled with the sound of war, now carried only the sound of a mother's sobs and a daughter's quiet relief. Marcus watched, his lips curving into a small, tired smile. After everything, after all the blood and fire, they had what they came for, a family reunited. Outside, the storm began to clear. The thunder faded. A single beam of sunlight broke through the clouds, shining down on the ruins. For Lyra, it felt like a promise. Not of more battles, not of more pain, but of a new beginning. She turned to her mother and Marcus, her voice firm. "We don't run anymore. We rebuild. Together." The queen nodded, her eyes proud. Marcus slung his rifle over his shoulder, his grin faint but certain. "Then let's show the galaxy what happens when you mess with humans and their friends." And with that, under the fading storm, a soldier, a queen, and her daughter walked out of the ruins, not as broken souls, but as a family ready to face the universe.